All right, let's take a look at that. So this should be first lap. This track is pretty tough on tires, so I do not expect this to be second lap. I could not get a second lap to feel any faster. So the out lap you want to get here is sorry, let me turn this down for you. As we are going to 3 and 4, I'm going to downshift into third, but make sure not to do it until you're kind of already in the middle of the corner because you don't want to slide because of the downshift. Right as I get the downshift, you'll notice that I immediately want to start turning down the hill at that point. So keep your car straight-ish until you downshift. So brake and then downshift and then start turning your car down the hill. And then try to get this straight line idea where you're really just making a straight line of the exit. And then you can downshift into upshift back into 4 pretty early. You want to max out the revs though, like 8,000. I probably was a little bit early there, but I was getting a little squirrely, so I'm just going to use 4th gear to settle the car a little bit. So if you want to bring it up all the way to 8, you can, and that might get you a little more speed. But the whole goal of this is to not have to feel the car getting loose to the point where you're losing momentum on exit. And you can see that, so the rest of that is just a straight line. Okay, going into 1 and 2. I'm going to slowly roll off the throttle as I come off the wall. I'll work on markers for you guys. So you see with this right here, all these marks on the wall, that's when I start turning down the hill and rolling off the throttle at the same time. I want to be at about half throttle most of the way down. And then as I get about a lane from the white line, I'm going to instantly transition this half throttle into a 10% brake and hold that 10% brake all the way to the white line and then pick up half throttle it's less than a second. About a second after you get to the white line with your brake, just to make sure that your car is not sliding back up the track. Now, spoiler alert, we will want the car to slide back up the track a little bit for the long run, but it's best for the qual run if we just keep it at the bottom. So we're just going to drag the brake until it sticks to the bottom and then half throttle, keep the car on the bottom, keep the car on the bottom. This corner lasts forever. It really feels like it. And so then at a certain point, the car is you're going to start seeing daylight over here and you're like, okay, I can start opening up my exit. I go full throttle. So I go full throttle just about when I see the exit of the corner because I know that the track is wide enough to where I can just drive straight up off the corner and not have to lose any momentum and not have to hit the wall. So kind of keep your eyes peeled. You might have a better marker for this. I kind of just see the exit in my peripherals, or even I just have the internal timing at this point. But there's a point where you can go full throttle and not really have to have the wheel do anything and drive straight back up to the wall. And that's the point where you go from half to full throttle. Let's take a look at that whole corner one more time all the way through because I was pausing through there. Okay, turn off the wall at the marks, half throttle as we come down the hill. About 1 lane from the bottom, we're going to transition to 10% brake. Stick the white line with the brake and then transition back to half throttle. Then we're just going to hold that half throttle and use our wheel to keep us on our line. Don't do this for long run. This is just for hot lap. And then as I'm able to unload the wheel, full throttle, let the car drive back up the track, make a straight line of the exit. Looks a little scary, but this track is wide in 1 and 2, so we get a pretty good exit there. Okay, 3 and 4. I drive a little bit past the 100, not quite at the 100, just a little bit past. And then I use so this reminds me of Darlington, and at 3 and 4, I have to use a lot more brake than 1 and 2. So past the 100, I'm going to start with my most amount of brake. So about half brake to start. And then as we enter the corner, I trail it down to 30 to 20 to 10. And then by the time I get to this white line, I want to be at about 10 to 20% brake, no more. And then I'm going to go for a 3rd gear downshift. This is not required. You'll see me shifting a lot today. People can do this just fine without shifting. I just prefer shifting. So if you don't want to shift, then just skip this step. So I wait until my car is settled on the white line before shifting, because if I am shifting while my car is still pretty high in the revs and pretty out of its groove, then it could kick out my right rear and kill my momentum and also just heat up the tires a ton. So I downshift when I'm in my groove, and then I'm just going to ride that half throttle on the 3rd gear, and I'm going to ride it all the way up to that 8,000 revs. You really want to almost hit the chip because that's how you maximize that downshift. And then as long as you are holding your half throttle, once your car starts sliding up, you can start rolling up to 100. And then once again, the track is wide enough to where you can kind of just aim at the exit, make it a straight line, get into fourth at the right time, go full throttle, and that should be a good lap for you. All right, now let's talk about long run. All right, let's talk about long run. So for long run here, I do like to shift still. Some people, I know Larry never shifted here, but this was also one of the few places where I could beat Larry pretty straight up. So I like shifting in 3 and 4. So let's talk about how my line differs, okay? So I'm gonna do the same sort of entry here, maybe just a little bit easier. And then instead of turning the wheel to keep it on the white line, I'm gonna use a little extra brake. You see I lose a couple tenths like immediately there, but that is like the difference between a ton of tire saving and almost no tire saving. Just that little extra wheel that you don't need. Now, if you're under pressure, sure, go ahead, but I don't think that's gonna be much of the case. And then using your brake to get down to the bottom, third gear, late. Same, pretty much the same line in 3 and 4, no modifications. So 1 and 2, you can be a little bit aggressive on entry, but if you're using a ton of wheel to get to the bottom, then it's too aggressive. You see how little wheel I'm using to keep it down here? Corner exit, don't worry about how early you're getting back to the throttle. You can get back to the throttle as early as you want, as long as you're not using extra wheel to get there. And then I'm going to brake a little bit earlier here. So your brake point for 3 and 4 is definitely going to move back as the race goes on. And you really want to work on just getting to this white line every single time. Oh, and that was me hitting the chip accidentally. That happens. So I haven't done a twin ring race yet with dynamic track. So what I'm thinking might happen is that you might have to start entering a little wider into 1 just as a result of the entry slicking off. But there's no way that there's a better line in 1 outside of the entry. And then 3 and 4, there's a very slight chance that second groove can become pretty viable up here. It gets a lot of, the bottom shortcuts the top a lot. So you can see that it loses me probably a tenth overall. But if the bottom is extremely slick with dynamic track, then that second groove there is going to become viable in a sense. And it's also pretty good for defending if you can take away the outside line. If you are finding yourself having to turn the steering wheel on exit to keep off the wall, that is telling me that you are not holding your partial throttle for long enough. It has really rarely anything to do with the line, because by the time you make the bottom in 1 and 2, you're kind of just there. It's such a long corner that pretty much everyone's going to get there one way or another. Whether you kind of destroy your tires to get there is another story. But like, for instance, if I get to the bottom pretty early, I use the brake a little bit to keep it off, or to keep it from sliding all the way up. I'm full throttle super early, and my car's just rotating itself, getting a little loose on exit, but still, I mean, you should not be needing a ton of turn on the exit to not hit the wall. So just reevaluate what line you're taking and your throttle timing if you're finding issues with that. And then remember, please, I mean, I say please, but it's your choice. Do not downshift early into the corner. People have the false idea that you want to get your car loose by any means necessary. I wonder who said that. But one of the ways that it doesn't work is by downshifting, because that rotation, that looseness doesn't get you anything besides right rear tire heat, because the car is just not controlled in any way. I'll give you an example. I'm going to downshift really early here. This is what a lot of people do. Short shift. You see how out of control my car is that whole time? You hear the tires squealing. See, the tires were so heated up there that my normal exit didn't even work at that point. So really delay your downshift if you are going to choose to shift in 3 and 4. Let's check tires. Yeah, see how even the tire is? People think that twin ring ends up being a right front tire burner. This just shows you that if you drive the correct line, this is super even, and the only reason the rear is worn more is because of that last corner I did to show off why not to downshift early. All right, thank you all for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all on the track.